Dear ones, it's Shiloh Sophia here, and it's the full moon, and I have just finished my year-long 2021 painting, which is called Cloud Clan, and it was for our class called Ritual, where a couple hundred of us from around the world embarked on a journey through the phases of the moons and discovering the hidden twin, the one who is often hidden in the subconscious, and invited that part of ourselves forward. But every step of the way, we tried to trust the process. We worked very metacognitively and intuitively and allowed what wanted to arise to arise. It's such an unexpected experience. I can't even tell you. It's just so unexpected. And I've been doing this every year for over 10 years. And some years I've done 2. These paintings kind of weave my whole life together because no matter what happens, it gets woven into the painting. And so anything that happens, world events, heartbreaks, grief, loss, gets woven into the painting. And even if I start with a particular theme, like discovering the part of myself that was hidden, which started happening here, and this character wasn't here at all, if you don't dominate the painting, your entire mystical psyche is just going to reveal that which wants to be revealed. It's pretty awesome, actually, if you can, I don't want to say just like get out of the way, but kind of just allow it to come forward. And there were lots of times throughout the year that I did not like the way that the painting looks. I feel like there's still some more work that I want to do, but I'm completing today on this full moon as I just celebrate the monumentalness of this year for myself and how much this painting has really been a pure devotion to me, including keeping a journal and naming each moon that I did with, different titles. Sometimes little kids came and worked with me, and really working with things like reconciliation. And just, really tracking the whole year. And it's been just super powerful. And one of the things that happened for me this year, if you didn't know already, is that I lost both of my parents from physical form, or we could say they walked on. And so having this painting to be able to work on was so important. In fact, I've been working on this painting since this day, 2020, when my mother was still with me. And so as time went on, of course, the deaths of the people I loved really factored into the painting in various ways and shaped it as it should. So there's some interesting things here. My mother's favorite bird is a seagull. And so these are her seagulls. And then my father, when he walked on, just a few months after my mom, he became this strand of DNA. And these 2 characters, these were me, but over time and through these changes, they actually became my mom, Karen, who in the story I wrote for it is Chieftain Gull, and this is Chieftain Heron, which is Sue. And then I also witnessed the transition of our elder Carmen Baraka, and that's represented by this feather. And when all of this all came out, then I kind of showed up here as this archetypal character. And because I didn't dominate it, it was interesting to note that the moons are in my consciousness, but also this like sort of heart-mindedness came forth. There's so much here that I'm not going to get into about the story of my 3 parents and how the hidden part of me ended up revealing a really way to bring completion to not only this year, but the way I'm oriented toward losing so many and really stepping into my own sovereignty and finding myself without those pretty significant, mighty, energetic and spiritual influences. It's interesting though, because Carmen, my father Greg, and my mother Karen, our ancestors now, they were all people who prayed for me. Like every day. So I find myself kind of exposed in this new terroir of like, okay, I have to create my own container. But I also know that that is happening within the framework of our Musea Intentional Creativity community. But I wanted to just say that intentional creativity as a creative spiritual practice is mystical, ritualistic, life changing, and totally badass. I cannot believe what it provided for me as a tool of resiliency, as an anchor, even just having to show up and film and share and be with the community and tell stories and invent the process and do all the things that I did. It's really like one of the primary ministerial devotions of my life. And so I've just finished, painting for a few hours, bringing some completion today, and then recording a spontaneous story that's called The Cloud Clan about my three parents and my role. And it's mythological, but there's also a literalness to it, just like a lot of mythological stories start with some literal aspect. And so it is this day, right, in this full moon solstice cycle, as I also honor the last time that I was with my mother when she was alive, that I bring completion to this cycle of painting. And it is in this also the same day that I will begin the next painting foundation. So in a way, I'm never without this really incredible, mystical, visionary screen where my psyche is able to work and develop. What's also amazing is the painting really gives rise to a lot of content, curriculum, and theme, and provides a way to walk in the world. It is a living, dancing, breathing, moving prayer in community. And I'm so grateful to have a community that loves to do this with me. So allowing you to witness the completion of my ceremony of ritual as I open to the ceremony that 2022 will bring. This is the story of how the Cloud Clan came to be. Are you ready to join me for a little spell, a little story as we weave a little yarn? Once upon a time, there were two chieftains, Chieftain Gull and Chieftain Heron. This is Chieftain Gull, and this is Chieftain Heron. The two matriarchal chieftains wanted to have an heir, yet they were unable to conceive a child, try as they might. They had heard the stories from old, from the grandmothers' grandmothers' grandmothers, that two women could indeed conceive. There was even a name for it, the parthenogenesis. Parthenogenesis, symbolized by two eggs. The chieftains knew that they had incredible wisdom to pass on to an heir because they had traveled such uncertain paths in their life and had a whole bunch of amazing gifts to pass forward. The thing is, they had moved through the veils of illusion and come to a place that each one felt was more true than what they had been taught by their mothers, by no fault of their mothers, simply that the paradigm their mothers were living in did not make this available. Both matriarchal chieftains worked very hard for the information they carried, and they worried if they didn't have an heir, how would that information be passed on? For a time, especially after they fell in love, they continued to teach their teachings to many others in the clan. But still, there was an ache in both of their hearts for a baby, for somebody who could look into their eyes and comprehend the depth of information they were carrying. They had not only seen through the illusion, they had actually parted the veil and stepped into another dimension, a dimension where the stories of old no longer held. They hoped that an heir would be able to take the story to the next level. And so, after many years, there was a moment where the two chieftains had a coming apart. And one of the chieftains, Chieftain Heron, went to an island, a far away island. But Chieftain Gull, named after seagulls at sunrise, could not stop thinking about the baby girl that she wanted. And so one day, she heard a rumor of a famed character, a chief in his own right, but from another dimension. Not exactly the underworld, not exactly the mycelium world, not exactly the old country, but from a long line of patriarchs that he had rejected, a rebel to be true. And so Chieftain Gull sought out this rebel. She sought him until she found him perched way high up in a tree. And she asked him his name, and he said his name was Gold. Gold, she said. Now, isn't that quite a name for a young man such as yourself? Because Chieftain Gull was now over 10 years his senior. But in that moment, something special happened between Gold and Gull. As he came down from his tree, and the two found a forest meadow of golden clover, and in that hour there was a conception. They say it was the full moon. They say it was in the county where the fairies live. They say it was unlike any night that either of them would ever have again. And indeed, Chieftain Gull carried a child in her womb. And it isn't that she didn't love Gold, but she saw that the child that she carried was not to be raised in the construct that Gold continued to hold in his mind, for he had rebelled against the patriarchal structures of his grandfathers and grandfathers and grandfathers before him, but ceased to actually create something for himself other than spending his time being a rebel. So he loved to roll in the golden clover, but when day came, would not pick up a shovel to do the daily work of making and breaking bread with the rest of the clan. And so Gold one day wandered off. And Chieftain Gull was sad, to be sure, but now she had the baby. She thought often about Chieftain Heron and thought of, what could I say to my previous love that I am now carrying the heir? And there was much deliberation until one day she received a letter from the island from Chieftain Heron, and it was an illustration of the island, and she told Chieftain Gull that she missed her. Well, Chieftain Gull made no to and but or and ooh about it. She just said, I am going to tell Chieftain Heron that the heir has come. And so it was that letters went back and forth until it was decided that Chieftain Heron would return. And the two came back together. And there was many late night conversations between the two of them about the getting of this child, the justice of it, about the nature of gold, about the DNA of gold from the line of patriarchs being carried forward into the clan. And there was some concern about how that child may be impacted by that particular DNA from the old country. But here they were together. And then there was one special moment, one day, where Chieftain Heron and Chieftain Gull were out taking a walk along the beach, and they saw a woman. This woman from a distance they both waved to, and they said, "Oh, I didn't know that you knew Madame Sonia. I didn't know that you knew Madame Sonia." And so surprised were they, for here was a woman they both cared for, an elder now. Now, Madame Sonia was the mother of gold, which is how Chieftain Gull met Madame Sonia. Madame Sonia was still angry and didn't yet know about the baby. She only knew that the Chieftain Gull had broken the heart of gold. As Madame Sonia approached them both, she witnessed an exchange between Chieftain Heron and Madame Sonia. Turns out that the two women had known each other many years before Chieftain Heron actually took into her fullness her position as chieftain in the clan. And so it was that there was an exchange between these three women, an exchange of knowing about the child that cometh. And while Madame Sonia still had her ruffles up in a bit of a tuffle, she understood that there was something else at hand, and that these two chieftains would be the mothers of her grandchild. So the two cared for the pregnant mother, and indeed it was a beautiful, beautiful pregnancy. Until one day, and it was the full moon, and all the clan was a-conjuring, and the moon was so bright, and the sun shone in the day, and out came the heir of the Cloud Clan. Now, this heir of the Cloud Clan didn't quite know what she was getting into. Her soul was ready for something, and she knew it before she ever came, but she found herself quite surprised by the expectation, how anticipated she was for so many years before her arrival, expectations placed upon her, ideations, dogmatations, incantations, revelations, revolutions, and not the least of which were evolutions of what both of the chieftains wished for her to do. But not unlike her three parents, the child was herself a rebel, a real dissident, even inside of a clan of those who are non-conforming. Soon enough, the mothers realized that they would not exactly be able to pass on their teachings exactly the way they wanted to. And so they chose how they would shape the gifts that they would give to their child. Chieftain Heron gave the child the gift of fierce discernment. And the other mother gave her fierce compassion. So with discernment and compassion, the child was raised. and her consciousness became a place of heart. So big was the presence of love that she experienced from her mothers that she became so full of heart that she wanted to make sure that the generations of the future would have the wisdom that was given to her through discernment and compassion. And so it went on for some time. The teachings would be passed to the child would interpret them in her own way and make discerning and compassionate choices for herself. When she learned that she would be the next chieftain when the two mothers departed, she wasn't sure she wanted the job. She saw how hard her mothers worked and the struggle of her mothers, and so she fled for a time to go and stay with Gold, who now had another child. She quickly found that Gold had no answers for her, except that she learned a little bit more about her own rebel nature, because she was not just the child of two rebels, but three. She was the rebel nature was pretty much stacked upon her. And from Gold, she also received a gift. And that gift was resistance. So now we have compassion, discernment, and resistance as a triple gift from the triple parentage. And so it came as the child was growing into a grown woman, she began to learn the ways of being a chieftain herself. And she took upon the name Laughing Cloud, which was rather ironic because this child was actually quite serious. While she found many things quite humorous, she often kept her giggles and her laughs to herself. She was aware of the severity facing the future. The clan and the planet and all the creatures and plants and animals were in peril, and she knew that she was inheriting a world that seemed almost unimaginably different than what she knew that her own mothers had gone through, which was already a challenging space to navigate. And so there was a ceremony. It was a ceremony following the years when both of her mothers left this dimension, and she was being inaugurated as the chieftain of the Cloud Clan. And she was asked what her first decree would be. In her heart, Chieftain Laughing Cloud knew that what she wanted to do was dismantle a kind of hierarchy, a kind of a way that we thought about above and below and middle, about the underworld, the middle world, and the upper world, the way that we created separation between inside the body and outside the body, between us and our relationship with all of mother and father life. She saw that there was an issue with the way distinctions and dualities were being made. She didn't know exactly how she would go about mending, but she felt that if at least her clan could understand how to become clair-conscious, clear-seeing, each one of them, that she would have done her job. She was not under any illusion that the whole world would change, but she knew just this one place where Cloud Clan was her responsibility. So, on the first day of her ceremony, she made a decree that in some of her circles, including the ancestors of Gold, her father, would get her killed, and in fact, had gotten many, many ancestors of the Cloud Clan killed. And this is the decree that she made. We shall no longer divide ourselves among higher and lower. We shall no longer divide ourselves through fear of heaven or fear of hell. We shall no longer divide ourselves of thinking that Creator is above and we are below, and if we fail, we will never get to be with Creator. She wanted them to know that the idea that persisted to this day of fearing a relationship with the divine, the cosmos, and the earth was hurting the people and leading to the peril of the planet. And so she decided and risked her life to decree that no more Would there be a heaven that is someplace else to attain to, and a hell that is someplace to avoid getting if you do not follow the guidelines of the dominant era culture? She remembers the day as she looks back now at how the desire for there not to be a division created a division. It deeply sorrowed her heart. She feels like she risked her life to declare that our consciousness must not be divided into these hierarchical patterns, that we have come so far from our understanding of being kin that we are losing our relationship with one another and the planet. And the first place to start is to eliminate the fear of heaven and the fear of hell, and to instead work this earth across what she called the orbis imaginalis, to look to the left and to the right instead of to the up and to the down. And so with this decree, she began to dismantle one by one the old stories, old ideas, and old thought patterns which were intricately woven into the psyche of the people, of a punishment and reward structure that was laid out by some parental figure that very few had a true experience of, as it was narrated by the leaders in the places where each person was taught. She recognized that the decree that we will have no fear of heaven and no fear of hell was risking so many things. She knew that her parents may not even have agreed were they alive. And then Gold, her father, also moved from this planet. All three now in the space of the ancestors. And so Chieftain Laughing Cloud took upon her mantle the awareness of the responsibility of the Cloud Clan and proceeded to spend the rest of her days building a temple where love is at the center of all choices, where all beings are equal, where plants, animals, all creatures are equal, where we live as family, where we do not live in fear, but are motivated by a heart of love, with compassion, with discernment, with resistance when needed, and with a heart of curiosity and discovery. And that is how